All right. Thank you so much for joining me for Content That Converts. Go ahead and get started. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the final day of ParDreamin 2020. I am so excited to be here and have already learned a ton from the other speakers this week. So I'm hoping to give back even just a pinch of that awesomeness by covering a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, content. So, yep. That's me. I'm Ashley Anger, and I swear I'm not as vicious as my last name would imply. I'm a consultant on the marketing solutions team for Coastal Cloud. I'm a 2020 marketing champion, a dessert lover, huge dessert lover, and also a fan of strategy and process. So enough about me. You didn't come to learn about me. You came to learn about creating content that converts. So throughout today's session, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat at the side of the screen, and I'll try to answer as many as possible. Let's kick it off with an attention-grabbing stat, shall we? 100%, the number of new emails that need content before they are sent. It's frightening, right? So especially for marketers who may not be strong copywriters. And surprise, there are quite a few of us out there. But don't panic. Hopefully today will get you kickstarted on creating content for your first nurture campaign. Okay, so we've seen some amazing technical sessions this week. I know I've attended quite a few that just blew my mind, but marketing is about more than just your tech tool, right? So during this session, we're going to chat about the other piece of the puzzle, which is your messaging. So this session is specific to content as it pertains to your engagement programs and the development of those. And we'll be covering the importance of persona development and keeping in mind that they are people. We are not selling to businesses, we're selling to people who are in those businesses. 3 phases of the nurture funnel. So we've got awareness, consideration, and decision. And then also how those emails correlate with each other, but keeping it at a really basic level for those who may not be familiar with engagement programs in Pardot just yet. Also how to develop content for each phase and little tips and tricks and things to consider. We'll also talk about the possibility of tying profiles and personas together in Pardot. A few key takeaways for emails, a couple tips and tricks that I have, a little checklist at the end, something that you can have printed out and keep on your desk if you need a quick resource at a glance. So keep in mind, many of the things that we'll touch on today will also be relevant for list emails as well. I just have a method to my nurture program madness, and that's what I want to share specifically during this session. So starting off with the first question, what is content marketing? Besides a buzzword, of course, because I think we've all heard it quite a bit, especially this year and last year. So according to the Content Marketing Institute, it's a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. That is a mouthful. So when I read all of that, basically what I'm seeing is delivering the right message to the right people at the right time, and that's easy peasy, right? So actually it can be, especially with Pardot. Okay. The first step in developing a successful nurture engagement program is understanding your audience, in my opinion. The second step would be making sure the data in your system is accurate and collecting all of the right criteria for you to segment off of. So data is where it's at every time, all the time. And if you don't know, now you know. Data is the core of absolutely everything. So if we take a look at this slide, this has a couple fields that would be helpful for us in our programs to be able to pull and segment from. So things we'll want to do when creating a persona would be give the persona a name, and that typically comes at the end after you've decided who your persona is. Any demographic information, so we're talking age, gender, ethnicity, income, education, there are a lot of those factors out there. Job information, so industry, size of company, job title, level, experience, pain points, so what problems are we trying to help them solve? Values, so what are their needs? What are their goals? What are their objectives? Where do they gather their data. So this is a big one that I think maybe not a lot of people think about. So where do they go for information? Are they looking for answers on Google? Do they phone a friend? Like, how would they find out about you? And then also objections and obstacles. So any potential objections they may have to your business or products or services. Okay. I did put together a little sample persona, so that way you guys have this as a takeaway. And this will also be what we use to work through today's session. So meet John. You can see by reading the sample persona, it contains a lot of the bullet points that we just covered. So granted, this is a pretty detailed persona. Not every company will be able to get to this level in their data, and that's okay. You have to start somewhere, right? Plus, personas are not set in stone, so they evolve and change just like your business does, and that's also okay. So we've named our persona, we've put a face to him. We've got some demographic information with his background in business and his classic American cuisine. We've pulled some job information, so we can see that he's in the food and beverage industry. He's got over 10 years experience and he's got an in-house team. His pain points are that he wants to serve desserts, but he doesn't have that skill set in-house. And then he also values local business. So a few key points about him. So now that we have a persona, we know the type of audience that we want to target in our nurture program, and we can build based off of the data and the criteria that we have in our system to build a list that would match a persona similar to this. So the next step is the buyer's journey. So the buyer's journey can be broken down a million different ways. I like to keep things really simple, so I prefer just the 3 phases: awareness, consideration, and decision. And then each content piece that we create should be created with a KPI measurement in mind, based on whether it was designed to create awareness, enhance consideration, or drive decision-making. Some awareness KPIs may include unique visitors, new visitors, audience reach, inbound links, advertising, impressions, those types of things. And they can often be a bit trickier to measure ROI on, but they are still very important. They're an important part, don't leave them out. The next would be consideration KPIs. And we're looking at number of page visits on the website, maybe the length of the visits, any bounce rates, any shares or comments or site interactions, things like that. And all of that gets a bit easier to track and measure. And then in that final phase, some decision KPIs that are pretty common would be lead sign up, conversion rate, email subscriptions, followers, purchases, whatever your nurture program's goal is. So because we know that each of these phases is different and will have a slightly different KPI, we want to make sure to craft content specific to that phase. So that's where we get into the next piece. Okay, next up is our focus on awareness. So this is where we start, and we'll go back to our example persona. So in the awareness phase, prospects are usually experiencing symptoms of a problem or opportunity. They're starting to do some research and better understand kind of what they're going through. So as an example, let's say I'm a marketer at Zingtastic Treats in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I'm looking to put my delicious desserts into local stores and restaurants. Help me get my name out there a bit. So an example of awareness content I may use could be emailing owners and managers of local restaurants with content revolving around the importance of supporting the community and locally sourced ingredients. Maybe triggering the thought of that exceptional quality kind of right in your backyard. Not blasting my company all over the email. I'm not being a pushy salesperson. This could potentially be the first interaction that you have with this person. And I'm simply sharing the local love, maybe directing them to a checklist or a questionnaire on where they could have their, maybe they share where their desserts are currently supplied from, or any struggles that they're facing, you know, just kind of planting that seed. So this stage is usually pretty common to have your call to actions. And when I say call to actions, I do not mean a read more button, you guys. I mean an actual strong call to action. Maybe it's directing them to detailed guides, ebooks, quizzes, expert content, things like that. And I create 3 emails in this phase. And I keep those emails in mind. When I'm creating those emails, I keep a few kind of best practices email layouts in mind. And they're pretty common, but I just want to throw those out there for those who are newer to Pardot and to email marketing. I keep it short but sweet. Get it? Because I'm talking about desserts. Also, I make sure that my call to action button is above the fold, so people don't have to scroll down 4 or 5 times to see what I actually want them to do. They open their email, typically on a mobile device, and then they would see that button right in the top. I also make sure that I'm direct in my messaging and that I stick with my brand voice. This is a big one. So if I'm a bakery, I don't want to write emails that sound like a pharmaceutical company. I don't want to be overly formal in my text. You know, I want them to feel the same way, and I want it to reflect how they would feel if they went to my website or ate my chocolate chip cookies. And hopefully you don't get pharma company vibes when eating my chocolate chip cookies, because if you do, I'm definitely doing something wrong. So maybe you even make the third email in the awareness phase a highlight or a review. So when you want to try something new, if you're like me, the first thing I do is go to reviews or ask around or look online and see, you know, what other people are saying. So I would want to share that proof, maybe in email 3 of awareness with others, that my desserts do live up to the hype and it is worth trying. So the first 3 emails would be complete. Awareness phase content is good to go. Next up would be the consideration phase. So at this point, prospects have kind of defined and given a name to their problem. So they're really researching and understanding all of the different things that they could do to solve it, right? And in this phase, I'm looking at providing free samples of my bakery goods and desserts and offering them to local restaurants. So I'm really fishing for an opportunity for owners and managers to try my product, fall in love with it like they undoubtedly will, right? And want to take the next steps. So it's always helpful to make things personalized in this stage. Since I know our persona, John's restaurant, serves all-American foods, I'm not trying to offer him French delicacies or something really extravagant. I'm thinking more along the lines of maybe my strawberry shortcakes or brownies or those chocolate chip cookies that I talked about earlier. So you get the drift. You want to make it personalized to who you're reaching out to. And then other common content that fills these 3 consideration phase emails can also be case studies, webinars, catalogs, but I'm a sucker for free samples myself, and I have a feeling that my persona, John, is also, since he appreciates quality and community. Okay. And then the final phase in the funnel, where you really want to amp up your name, promote your brand, that's the decision phase. So now the prospect has decided on the solution or knows what he wants that next step to be. So in the 3 final emails, I would put my focus on converting them into that sales process. So as an example here, if we think back, I've already hit the awareness phase, so I've already sent out information about some values and things like that. I sent some free samples. So now I'm really trying to direct my readers or my prospects to maybe get a quote on a dessert delivery or highlight the benefits of a partnership with me, right? So maybe that includes a volume discount. Maybe that includes a 4-week discounted trial to see how our 2 companies work together. Maybe that includes daily or weekly fresh deliveries, because being a local company, having fresh baked goods is a highlight. Maybe that's flexible payment terms, even donating a portion of the proceeds to a local charity or event. So the goal is to get them to want my desserts in their business. And now's the time to brag about that a little bit and really get them over that finish line. Okay, so quick recap. We've got our personas, we've got our 3 awareness phase, consideration phase, and decision phase email content ready, and we know who we're speaking to and what we're saying. Now what? Okay, so the fun doesn't stop there. That's all kind of the strategy on the back end. Now we get to take those buyer personas and we can create profiles in Pardot, or we can score them each. We can create scoring categories for each of them if we have different areas in our business that we really want to make sure that are segmented a little bit more. We can use our new personas for keyword strategies and advertising studio and social studio audiences. We can use them for brand and business guidelines and even employee acquisition. So if we know who our audience is, we can hire and make those hiring decisions based on the need that'll be a best fit for our audience. So it's all about using that data that you've collected to really best build out the personas in your platform. So once you have that, you can use dynamic content. I know Stephen had a great session on dynamic content. We've got different methods of segmentation that you can use to really pinpoint the right person to receive the message at the right time. And we kind of touched back on that at the beginning of our session. So I told you it was easy. It's all about the right message, the right person, the right time, and it's all very doable in Pardot. I also wanted to point out that even the team members at Salesforce Pardot saw the value in creating personas a few years ago. So I did add a link to the full case study at the bottom of the slide. Definitely check it out. It's got some humor, it's got some guidance. It was a really colorful article that I found on their blog post. Okay, so with all that being said, and I know we've covered a ton, I also wanted to share my basic checklists for creating a baseline nurture program in Engagement Studio. So here's where we'll talk a pinch about the tech side. I know we didn't touch too much on tech yet. So I'm a sucker for process. I think I mentioned that in my intro. I create and document processes for almost everything because that's just how my brain works best. So for almost every engagement program, it stems from these basics. So I start by creating all of my assets. So I've got 6 lists that I can't live without. The first one is program input. Then I've got engaged prospects, unengaged prospects, warm leads, hot leads, and completed program. So input list is easy. That's where I pull my audience that fits the persona that I want to add to the engagement program. So for keeping with our example, I'd say here my list criteria would probably be owners or managers of restaurants within 30 miles of my home base, since I want to keep it local. And then depending on what kind of data I have in Pardot, I can get really specific or I can keep it pretty broad. So if I had information in my system that denoted whether they were a specific restaurant style, or if they were a chain restaurant versus an individual storefront, or if they were only offering carryout right now, I could make sure to package my baked goods and my desserts a specific way. So there are a lot of different ways we could take that, but that would be my input list. My engaged and unengaged lists are just that. So if a prospect clicks on a CTA in one of my emails, I add them to the engaged list. And then if they don't click on a CTA in email 1, I automatically add them to that unengaged list. And then if they do, as they continue down my engagement program, click on a call to action in any of the following emails, I just remove them from the unengaged list and add them to the engaged list as part of the automation in the program. So that way we've always got an accurate engaged and unengaged list. Super easy for people to be able to see or to pull a report on that, or even for just some insight for the sales team to see what's going on, who's where. My warm and hot leads lists typically look like this. And this is completely customizable, especially based on how your scoring and grading is set up. So I just want to throw that out there as a little caveat. But I like to do, if a prospect clicked on a CTA, then they would take the yes path in the engagement program. And then the next rule may be, does prospect have a score between 150 and 299 and a grade of B+ or better? And then if yes, they would go down that path. And then does the prospect have a score of 300 or higher and a grade of B+ or better? So if they have a score between the 150 and 299, I add them to my warm leads list. If their score is 300 or higher, I add them to the hot leads list. So this is all based on, again, your scoring and grading model, which is a completely different session, but there's a lot of flexibility in here. So this just gives our marketing and sales teams some information. So they can use it to see if any of their open opportunities are living on this list, if there are any key accounts or account members on this list, whatever your business process looks like. It's just another data source and another item for you to pull if you need to be able to show some data points on your engagement program, especially if it's in the beginning stages and there's not a ton of engagement or action taken yet. So then the last list I create is the completed program list. And I add prospects to this list at the end of the program before I remove them from the input list. So my bottom 3 steps in my engagement program are add to whatever the name of the completed program is, then remove from program input list, and then you've got this stop at the bottom. And this is great. I do this because, number one, I like things organized, but also I like to use the completed program lists as input lists for future nurture programs. So if they've completed my very basic, very general, nurture program 1, then I would want to maybe create another nurture program and call it like a nurture program 2. And then use the list from the completed the nurture program 1 as the input for nurture program 2, because they're obviously interested in the content to some extent. They've completed the program, they didn't opt out. So we've got some really good things going on there. And then I've also got my launch date. So outside of lists, I'm looking at the launch date and the cadence planned out, and this is another big one. So if prospects are clicking the call to action in my emails, and I can tell because I create custom redirects for my call to actions, wink, wink. Perhaps I want to trigger a 7-day pause because they're engaging, they're taking that content, they're reading it, they're excited about it. If they're not engaging, I don't want to continue to fill their inbox. So I don't want to send them emails every 7 days if they haven't clicked on any and they're not showing interest. So rather than have them unsubscribe, I'll have them take the no path. So the rule would be, have they clicked on the call to action? If it's yes, then I would give them a 7-day pause. If it's no, I may give them a 14-day or a 21-day pause instead. So that way they're not getting so many emails in their inbox, but I'm still kind of staying top of mind. And then also on the right hand of this checklist, you'll see the emails broken down by phase. So you can see I've got 3 emails for each phase. This is all built into a single engagement program, but I do start with 3 awareness, 3 consideration, and 3 decision emails. And that kind of rounds out a pretty basic baseline nurture program. So this makes up the core baseline of any of my engagement programs. So if you've been in Pardot, you know that they can get really, really fancy. There's a ton of opportunity to segment within a program, to use completion actions and multiple rules and really get some crazy, awesome things going on. But as a beginner or someone who is fairly new to Pardot or fairly new to engagement and nurture programs in general, I always found that keeping it simple, building a foundational base, and looking at that data first to determine what can be improved on for the next round is always been my preference. So that's kind of in a nutshell what it would take to build out an engagement program while keeping in mind your personas and your 3 different phases of content developed specifically towards that persona. And then I also added on here just a quick email build and pre-send checklist. So working with a lot of different companies and clients, it's always one of the first things that I'm asked for when they're kickstarting their marketing automation efforts. Because I'm visual and I love to check things off a list, it's that process mind again, it only makes sense for me to deliver it as such. So this is a great little list of things to check before making any communication live. It's a useful tool to have printed out or saved on your computer. And I may or may not have had to learn some of these the hard way. So if I can turn my experiences into a list that will help you, definitely here to do that. And you'll see on here, we've got a couple different things. We've got making sure that if you're working in a large organization, you're working with approved email copy. It's quick for people to make an email and then send it off for approval and then have 10 other different people decide that that email content's not what was approved and then have to go through those changes. And there's a lot that goes into that. So it covers the email prep work during your email build, making sure that you're testing things, and then also that pre-program start. All right, so we are at time. We've covered a lot in the last few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and see if there were any questions. Megan said, are you using custom redirects within the email CTA or is that on the landing page? It's a great question. I actually build all of my CTAs as custom redirects, and then sometimes I'll use completion actions coming off of that, but it really depends. Send them to a landing page from an email, then my call to action would probably be a link to that landing page. But I'm a huge fan of custom redirects. I know there are a lot of people out there who don't see a need for them or are not excited about them like I am, they are probably one of my favorite simple features in Pardot ever, just because there's so many different things that you can do coming off of them. So you can add people to a list, you can assign people, it's awesome. So definitely one of my favorite features. I do use them pretty much wherever I can. And then how do you create a profile? So I don't have my instance pulled up, so I won't be able to show you. But generally speaking, a profile would be putting together, let's see, I'm not sure how to explain it without actually showing you. It would basically be pulling in criteria that would make your ideal customer or who you think would be your best fit, and then giving them a grade. So it ties into grading. It would be giving them a grade in a third of a letter increments, based on yes, they're a good fit, or no, they're not a good fit. That's really kind of generally speaking. So I hope that helps a little bit, but if you want to talk more about that or hop on a Zoom call after Megan, I'm sorry, not Megan, Sarah, we can definitely chat. I'm more than happy to walk through and show you how to do that. Great questions also. I know I just touched on it. And then Stephanie said, is it possible in a workflow to check the clicks on several links within the same email without having to check the first link, wait for 1 day, check the second link for 1 day, click on the third link for 1 day? Yes. So it all just depends on how you create your engagement program. So there are multiple rules that you can build in your engagement program. You can check for different link clicks. I always look for so I don't base anything on opens, because I feel like opens aren't necessarily the best way for me to judge engagement on my emails and my programs. So I base all of them on link clicks, but I really focus my link clicks specifically on the call to action. So I'll have some social icons in there. I may have some hyperlinks to, other sources or things like that, but I really only focus my engagement metrics on my call to actions, because that's really what I want to be focused on. That's really what I'm measuring my personal success on, is am I getting people where I want them to go? So I hope that helps a little bit. Can I share the link to the Pardot persona blog post? If you're referring to the one from Salesforce Pardot, I did add that into the slide with the quote from Jenna on it. So there's that. But if there's a specific blog post that you're looking for, please don't hesitate to reach out. I do have my contact information here. Definitely want to hear from you guys. Any feedback, any great tips you learned, anything that's worked really well for you engagement programs, I definitely want to continue the conversation. So I know I am out of time. If there are any other questions that you guys would like to ask, I've got my LinkedIn, my Twitter, and my Instagram all up here. Definitely more active on LinkedIn, so that's probably the best way to reach me. But I am here. I love answering questions and helping however I can. So definitely feel free to connect. Thank you again so much. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a wonderful rest of your day for ParDreamin 2020, and we will talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.